On the science front, it turns out that the gene that led to what they call the human intelligence boom has been discovered. In other words, the gene that makes us smart, quote unquote, has been identified by scientists. As always with evolutionary advances, it looks to be in some ways somewhat random, a reshuffling of the genome of an ancestor to the human race more than 3 million years ago, but a reshuffling that gave an evolutionary advantage. Now, this discovery was made at the University of California, Santa Cruz by a scientist named David Hausler and his team. They were comparing brain development in human beings and monkeys, and they found one key difference. Human brain growth seemed to be driven by a gene called NOTCH2NL that they couldn't find in monkeys. So they looked around, they found out that this gene controls the number of brain cells that form. It apparently delays the transformation of stem cells to brain cells so that more of those stem cells can divide and grow. And by the time they turn into brain cells, there are more of them. Hence, bigger brains and smarter humans. Now, this allowed us, according to this team and Hausler, allowed us to grow 3 times more brain cells. Now, human skulls started to expand soon after this gene showed up in our ancestors, but the people who developed these extra big brains did not necessarily become as intelligent as human beings. These larger brains showed up not just in Homo sapiens, but in our cousins, the Neanderthals, and the Denisovians. Now, the Neanderthals and Denisovians died out, presumably, according to scientists, because they did not have as much intelligence as we do. Now, then the question becomes, well, if you got the bigger brains, why aren't you smarter? Well, they're looking into that now, thinking maybe other things trigger that. Now, there are also downsides to having the bigger brain. Babies occasionally get extra copies of this gene, which causes them to overdevelop brain matter, or they get not enough of it, according to another problem. And so certain diseases can result from that. But then the question remains, at least in my mind, if we're so smart, why can't we learn to live in the environment that was in which we evolved? Why can't we learn to live in harmony with the planet that produced us? Why can't we learn to live without warfare or racism or an economic system that doesn't benefit anyone? But why, most of all, why are we destroying our environment if we're so darn smart? It's a good question. And in fact, there was another interesting study that I want to bring your attention to. It was a study by astronomers looking to see how alien civilizations might live within their own environments. A study mapping out possible histories of alien planets, civilizations, and the climate change that follows. The study was done by an astronomer, an earth scientist, and an urban ecologist. They called it, half-jokingly, quote, a theoretical archaeology of exo-civilizations. That is to say, alien civilizations. And what they found was a little bit disturbing. They found that most civilizations that appear on other planets are likely to become extinct because they overuse the environment on which they live and the precious materials on which they live. In other words, energy-hungry civilizations might quickly drive their own planets into climate change. So it leaves open the question of whether we are going to make it. It leaves open the question, really, whether any civilization can make it. It's a question we better answer quickly, but we better use that extra brain matter very wisely in the days, as well as weeks, months, and years to come, if we are to survive as a species.